Hey guys, welcome to this first ever episode of the School of Transformation podcast. First order of business, I know it's been a little while. I've been working very hard on the Total Transformation program and the School of Transformation, which is going to be open soon. And that's all of this is to help your body, mind, and spirit to just feel amazing, to help you flourish. And so today's episode, the very first episode, I wanted to offer you something so valuable, something so near and dear to my heart, and that is how to heal almost anything. This has been a big theme of my entire adult life, healing my mind, healing my body, healing my spirit. And I think it's a theme for every human being, to be honest with you. I think all of us are healing something at some point. We're always going through some kind of a healing process, whether it be emotional or physical or psychological or spiritual or trauma related or whatever it is. So I want to help you with that today. I want to help you with the healing process that you're going through. And let's be honest, if you're a human being, you've got some healing to do because it's traumatic to be a soul in this body on this life. Life can be traumatic and it can be a lot. So I want to offer you some really important things that have gotten me through to a place that I never really understood or thought was possible. This place of joy and love and lightness and freedom, inner peace, health, beyond comprehension, to just be free. Okay, so let's get into the healing process. And I'm going to share just a little bit about my background. I've been doing some healing my entire adult life because I had clinical depression for most of my 20s. For the 1% of you who have never had depression before, it feels like there's a heavy brick weighing you down, tied to your ankle, and that you got cotton in your head and your brain is moving so slow. And the thoughts that do come from your slow moving brain are not very nice. They're not very pleasant. And the emotional energies are dark and it's just not fun. And so I dealt with that for most of my 20s. And just a quick side note, there's nothing wrong with antidepressants. I just didn't go that route. It just didn't feel right to me. There was something in my spirit. I took an antidepressant one day, once. And this was at the advisement of the therapist who was, side note, the therapist, I asked her, like, have you ever taken them? She's like, oh yeah, I'm on them right now. Which in retrospect is pretty messed up. But she recommended, it was Zoloft. It was like the generic version of Zoloft. And she's like, oh yeah, yeah. It's just, here's how it works and blah, blah, blah. I took it one day and I just knew in my soul, I just knew it. It was not part of my path. It was not part of my journey. And my higher self, and I believe also my guides, by the way, this episode and most episodes of the School of Transformation are going to be very woo-woo. I believe my guides and my higher self were telling me, no, that's not for you. I don't think that's true for everybody. I think sometimes maybe that those things are necessary, but for me, it was not in my path. But I would not be where I am today if I didn't have that depression. That depression was a gift. Most of my days are good now, and I never let a good day pass without being like, hallelujah, I had a good day today. Man, it feels good to have a good day. Like, I will never take joy for granted, and little things do not bother me anymore because you cannot take away my joy because I worked hard for this joy. This joy is mine. You can't take it away. Go ahead, traffic. Try to cut me off. Try to take my joy. When you used to have depression and you no longer have it, it's been years since I had it. You can't take my joy. Cut me off. Go ahead. Flick me off. I don't care. Honk your horn. I don't know. Whatever. Okay. So that was a bit of a tangent, but let's keep going. So I had depression, also suffered from autoimmunity towards the end of my 20s. And that was more or less kind of my body saying, hey, you need to change. This is serious. You need to change something. You need to change it. Change it. So that was my wake-up call. That was a big old brick hitting me in the head. I had alopecia and lupus. For those of you who don't know, alopecia is when hair falls out of your head in big patches. And Lupus is a systemic inflammatory autoimmune issue that kind of attacks the body, attacks its own tissues, and that's kind of an all-encompassing autoimmune issue. But basically, all autoimmunity is the same thing. All of it. It's one big giant. We have different names for autoimmunity. It's all the same thing. It's all the body attacking itself, which is more or less a reflection of what I was doing internally. I was internally always attacking my own self in self-judgment, and just not treating myself very well, not being my own best friend. And so that leads me to kind of the healing process. So the healing process that I've undergone the past 6 or so years, okay, kind of like 7. It's kind of been 7. I've learned a lot. I've gotten copious amounts of certifications in polyvagal theory and yoga and spiritual practices. I've studied with psychic medium teachers, and I've studied with spiritual teachers, and I've studied with Buddhist monks, and my life has run the gamut the past 7 or so years of like the people I've talked to, the people I've met, the people that have been put in my path, the books that I've been blessed to read. And through all of that, I'm happy to tell you that healing is so possible, because I am a testament, full remission of everything. That doesn't mean I don't have a bad day, and that doesn't mean that the stuff could never come back, because guess what? There's no cure for autoimmunity. There's no cure for disease. There's no cure for cancer. There's no cure for depression. There will never be a cure for any of this stuff. Thank goodness, because these things are messengers a lot of the times. These things are little messengers of things that we're doing off balance. When we're off balance physically, emotionally, spiritually, all of it's the same. We're all one big mind, body, spirit complex. So when we get out of balance, your body, just like when you eat too much sugar, you get a cavity. When you get out of balance in any of body, mind, spirit complex, your body suffers. Your body gets illness. Your mind gets illness. So these things, there's no cure for them, but there is healing. And healing is what transformation is all about. The process of transformation. In this first episode, we're just talking about healing, but there's thousands of episodes to come, because transformation is an infinite process of becoming what you are, becoming who and what you are in truth, capital T, truth. This is healing. This is the process of healing. The transformation process is necessary for healing. We have to transform. If you have anything that I talked about, any ailments, IBS, depression, anxiety, bipolar, whatever, you have to transform with a capital T, and that means an all-encompassing mind, body, spirit approach. That's because we're not bodies. So that's one. Paradigm number 1. We have to shift from thinking that we're bodies. And this is hard because we seem to be in bodies. We seem to be bodies. We seem to be in a physical experience. We are in a physical experience. That does not mean that that's who you are. So step 1, you are not a body. You're not. You're 0% body. This is a really hard one for the ego to wrap its mind around. This is a really hard one for us to grasp. But you're not a body, you're a soul. And so this is the best news that you could ever get, because you're not a body, you're a soul. That means there's nothing that could happen to your body that could touch your eternal nature. You are an eternal spirit. You're an eternal being. You're a perfect divine being. And the soul aspect of you is untouchable. And that's the real you. So if you've ever had a loved one who passed away, which we all have, and you've seen that body, then you know that body is not that person or that pet. That's not what made that pet or that person who they were. It's their soul. That's what makes us who we are. That's who we are, the soul. The body is a nice outfit. The body is not anything different than like a jacket or a purse or a pair of shoes. You know, it's special. It's like the most special garment ever created, the physical body. It's amazing. It's like the most raddest designer outfit we could possibly be given. It's amazing. It's a miracle. However, it's not who we are. So just knowing that, and not just knowing it in your mind, but knowing it in your whole being, is very healing. And it's healing because it's the truth. So starting there, that's point A. You're not a body, you're a soul. That can help you to rest sometimes when you're in physical things. When physical things are happening, I know how hard it can be. But you can always just turn to the fact. This isn't like a denial, and we're not doing spiritual bypassing, which I don't really believe in, by the way. I don't believe in that term, spiritual bypassing. I think it's nonsense. But we're not turning away from reality. We're turning to reality. We're turning to, okay, my body's going through something. This is passing through some physical illness, some physical symptoms passing through, but I'm a soul. So in the grand scheme of eternity, this little symptom that's happening to me at this moment, it's okay. I accept it. I allow it. I welcome it. But more importantly, just beyond that, you're just a soul, just knowing that. That's so healing. So the next aspect of healing is releasing and letting go and surrender. Releasing, letting go, and surrender. Those are all in the same category. We're kind of using different names for the same thing. So releasing, letting go, and surrender is more or less allowing what's happening to be happening and not labeling it. So there's a lot of emotions and energies that were suppressed for me. And that was most of the cause of my autoimmune issues. I was suppressing my emotions. That was another reason that I had depression for so long, was because I was resisting and avoiding and distracting and working a bunch and not feeling the energies that were coming through my system. So we as human beings, we've got this machine that we call a body, and this machine happens to have emotions and heart tones and solar plexus action and nervousness and anger and just a whole rainbow of emotions happening, energies coming and going. But for a lot of us, we are told that it's wrong to feel, for instance, sadness, or it's wrong to feel anger, especially women. We're told, it's not nice to be angry. It's not nice to feel anger. So a lot of us shy away from feeling our feelings. This doesn't mean we go around like yelling at people and being terrible or crying our eyes out at the drop of a hat in the middle of a store or whatever, but it means feeling it, like really feeling it, like sitting with it and opening your arms metaphorically to the feeling and allowing it to be there and welcoming it. So for instance, take anything that you're working through right now, anything that's causing you some friction, some resistance, or fear, or anxiety, or anger, or frustration, or sadness, or whatever it is, and notice the feeling. It just takes a minute. You don't have to even close your eyes. You can do this anywhere. You notice the feeling coming up. You feel the feeling coming up. Feel the feeling coming up. Allow it to be there. In real time, you would take a couple minutes and just feel the feeling, really feel the edges of it, feel it, feel it, feel it. Let it be there. Open your arms to it. Come on, baby. Give me more of that feeling. Let me feel this. And then in our machinery, the way the body works is when we feel the emotions, that's what they're there for. They're there to be felt. It spends that energy. That's how emotions work. They're meant to be in motion. Emotion. You have to move them through by feeling them. If we keep doing what we've been doing as a species, especially the past 4 decades, just distracting and avoiding and pathologizing our feelings and our energies, they get stuck in our bodies. So you got to feel your feelings, really feel them, and not in your head, not think about them, not ruminate. This was a big problem that I had. I would ruminate and get into thought patterns about the feeling, and my thoughts would go on and on about why I feel like this and what's happening, and oh my God, what if this, and oh my God, he did this and she did that, and whatever, just thoughts. Get out of your head, let go of thinking, and drop into the feelings of it. I learned this, by the way, from Dr. David Hawkins, who was one of my teachers over the past couple years and really, really elemental in my healing. So all of his books are highly beneficial, but the one that I found, the two that I found that were most beneficial in helping me with this energy work, because this is what it is, this energy work, was Letting Go, The Pathway of Surrender, and Healing and Recovery. Those two books were so powerful. I found Letting Go at a library on a very hard day. I sent out a little SOS. I was just like, look, I need some help. I was in the library parking lot. Look, I need some help. I need you to give me a book. And this book was hanging out. I walked right in. There was something guided me to this one little area of this library. I mean, in truth, that was the area that I usually go to anyway. But it sounds good to just say I was guided to this one random section. It wasn't exactly a random section, but it was a section I usually go to. And then there was a little book, a yellow book, hanging out. And this book had been on my radar for like years. It's something that I was like, I don't think that would be something I'd be interested in. I don't know why. Then I picked it up, I thumbed it open, and the exact thing that I read was exactly what I needed to hear. And the rest of that book is just like magic. And that letting go process is in the book. And I tried it. I tried it right there in the parking lot. And holy cow, it just shed. I noticed that I shed a couple layers of energy from the heaviness that I was feeling. And that those layers were gone. I could just feel it. It was like magic. Those layers of energy were gone. And sure enough, week by week, big chunks of this energy would just break off and break off and break off. And before I know it, I can remember what depression feels like. I can remember it, but I haven't had that feeling in a long time, in many years. So back to the process, you feel the feelings, you allow them to be there, you welcome them with open arms, and then you ask the question. This is the big question. Are you ready? The big question. The big question is, am I willing to let this go? What? Of course I'm willing to let this go. I don't want to feel like this. But if you really ask it, here's what is a big surprise. That thing that's bothering you, that thing that's giving you resistance, think about the way that you're feeling, feel the feelings, and now ask, am I willing to let this go? Am I willing to let this go? Just a little bit, or a lot, or all the way. You'll be surprised. Some of you didn't want to let it go. If you're watching this on YouTube, put it in the comments. Did you have any resistance to that question? Were you like, no, I don't want to let this go? Because I did. I did not want to let go of so many crunchy, yucky emotions that I wanted to hold on to. Because there's payoff to some of these things. There's payoff to feeling pitiful. There's payoff to feeling really sad. Especially if in your mind you're like, well, I'm sad because this is sad, you know? We want to hang on to our emotions sometimes. So that's really good information. That's valuable information. If you're holding on to your emotions, there you go. You've got your answer right there. That's part of the energetic mismatch that might be happening in your system. I know for me, I was like, well, holy crap, I don't want to let this go. I don't know what I'm going to do about this, but I don't want to let this go. It took me a little while for certain emotions and certain energies to be let go of because I wasn't ready to let go of them, in truth. Eventually, I was ready to let go of them. Eventually, I kept asking the question, well, do you want this? Do you want this heavy emotion? Do you want this heavy sadness? Or do you want to feel peace? Do you want to feel joy? Does it matter if there's justification behind it? Do you want to feel happiness? Do you want joy? The ego doesn't want joy, by the way. The ego wants us all to suffer. The ego loves it. The ego's like, if you guys have ever been at Old Country Buffet, I grew up in the Midwest and we have a buffet called the Old Country Buffet, and it's just a buffet place. The ego loves a buffet, an Old Country Buffet of drama, of pain, of reasons to be sad, of chaos, of misery. And it creates these situations. It creates these energetic imbalances. It wants all this stuff to be happening. It wants us to be in pain and illness and whatever. And also it loves when we're in illness, when we happen to be having physical symptoms. It loves when we feel pitiful about it and make it a big, huge ado about it. It loves big, huge drama stories and poor little me and all that stuff. Like, it really does. It thrives on it. Teachers, by the way, if you want more resources on pathways to surrender, the teachers I highly recommend are Dr. David Hawkins, Michael Singer, and also Eckhart Tolle. Was such a great teacher for me during this whole healing process. And also Eckhart Tolle is still probably my primary teacher. As well as any sacred scripture, all of it talks about surrender. All of it talks about letting go and releasing. So the next thing I wanted to talk about in healing is congruency. Congruency is so important for healing. Congruency is when your personality, your soul, what you want, and how you're being in the world, and your values, when all of you is congruent. There's lots of moving parts to who you are. There's lots of different moving parts to what you want, what your opinions are, what your beliefs are, what your values are. When you can basically be in congruency with all those moving parts, that's healthy. But when, for instance, if you really value service, just to take an example, if you really value service and you really value helping other people, but you're not doing that in your life, that can be a little bit incongruent. Or if you really don't enjoy the relationships that you're in, if they just feel inharmonious, if they feel incongruent, but yet you're still going to that relationship because you're afraid to be alone, for instance, that's incongruency, and that causes illness in the body. These cause energetic shifts in the body. In truth, when you're doing the surrender and you're being present for what is, for really feeling your emotions, and when you know your soul inside of a body, congruency kind of happens on its own. So you don't have to micromanage yourself and you don't have to nitpick at what you're doing, but just be aware of the different areas in your life that you may be incongruent in. You probably already know some of them. There's maybe some that you don't even realize, but what you'll notice is when you start releasing and letting go and you start abiding as a spirit inside of a body, you'll start to get more congruent in your life. And if there's any glaring things right now that are jumping out at you that you're like, oh, I'm not congruent in X, Y, or Z, maybe it's time to think about getting a little bit congruent in that area, doing a little bit here and there of what can you get congruent in. You can start small also. If you know that you shouldn't be smoking weed, for instance, or it just feels like not a great thing to do. No judgment, by the way. I don't partake in weed, but no judgment if you do. Some people enjoy it and some people, it suits them just fine. But if you're a person who's smoking weed or drinking a whole bottle of wine, or you're drinking a little too much wine and you just know it's not the right thing to do, that's a little thing that you could probably, that you can start doing now. That will help your healing process. And again, when we're talking about healing, we're talking about like global healing, mind, body, spirit stuff. Okay. And the next thing I wanted to offer is some really practical stuff, body, mind stuff. And the first thing I wanted to offer is Yoga Nidra. Yoga Nidra is so healing. Yoga Nidra is a passive form of yoga in which you'll lie down and someone takes you through a guided body scan. My very first Yoga Nidra class changed my life, so much so I got certified in it. So we all have something called a vagus nerve. The vagus nerve goes from behind your eyes all the way down your spinal column, and it helps with your nervous system regulation. And most of us, probably 90% of Americans and anybody in the Western civilization, we have a dysregulated vagus nerve. And that means we're always stressed out. That means we can't sleep. That means we can't function. That means we're always in fight or flight. It means we're never at rest. Maybe you might sit down for some TV every once in a while, but we're not really resting, totally resting. I had not rested pretty much my entire adult life until my first Yoga Nidra class. So I didn't realize what rest felt like. But what Yoga Nidra does is it takes your body into a state of deep rest. And you're laying down, by the way, you're laying down on a mat and you're underneath a blanket and you're on a bolster and you're just feeling like you're floating because you're so cozy. And then, like I said, the yoga teacher takes you through different parts of your body. But what that does is It separates your conscious mind from the awareness that is always present, from the truest aspect of who and what you are. Most of our days are spent focused on thoughts and emotions and situations and future and past. However, where in truth, we are a beautiful empty glass of water. We're just pure awareness. And to be in that pure awareness is so nourishing for the body, because that is taking it back to paradigm number one, your spirit inside of a body. So in Yoga Nidra, you're actually resting as your soul. You're able to be in that presence, which we don't really get to do all that often when we're, walking around as a body-mind complex, which we have to do in this world to kind of function and not be homeless. But Yoga Nidra helps you to experience this deep peace, relaxation, and wholeness. Another aspect of healing is the obvious things of diet and exercise. So diet and exercise are very important, and that means the AIP diet, that's what I recommend for healing. But honestly, the most important part of your healing process when it comes to diet and exercise is listening to your guidance, listening to your body, listening to your higher wisdom. My guidance brought me to AIP, the autoimmune protocol. And I'm very grateful for that, but I don't think it's necessary for everybody. I think everybody has a different healing path. I do think AIP is a very, very good magic bullet. I really think it's a silver bullet for most people and most issues. That includes digestive issues, autoimmune issues, depression, anxiety issues, brain fog, energy issues. So much. It has a potential to really heal a lot of problems. And then with exercise, really listen to your body. Sometimes you might need to do more working in step. I can't recommend yoga enough. And I think yoga is very, very healing, as well as Qigong. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about before I let you go is something very important, and that is connecting on a regular basis to a higher power, connecting yourself, plugging your conscious mind into the higher power, and dwelling consciously in that love, in the loving force that we can call God, we can call universe, we can call the one, really dwelling in the love of that presence that is always there. We need to do that in our own way, whatever way works for you. Some people get that feeling of wholeness and love when they're hiking on a mountain. I really like meditation. I love being in silence, and I love stillness, and I love peace and quiet. Anything that brings you a state of joy and peace and love, that is actually being in the presence of God, of the divine, of the beloved. Do things that you enjoy, and do things that make you feel just that feeling that you get when you're doing something that brings you lots of joy that you really love. Also using prayer, like regular old prayer. You can use secular prayer if you're not into theology, if you're not into religion. I don't discriminate. I love all of the sacred texts, and I love all different kinds of prayer, but using sacred language. And I highly recommend the Bhagavad Gita. That's such a good sacred scripture. And I also love the Course in Miracles. The Course in Miracles is a beautiful, amazing tool for transformation. The Course in Miracles is written in Christian language. I know that turns a lot of people off, but when you actually read it and you get past your judgment of the Christian language, you start to really understand the deep truths that are held within the Course in Miracles. I love the Course in Miracles. I love the Bhagavad Gita. I love the Upanishads and the Dhamapada, and also the beautiful teachers like Eckhart Tolle, Thich Hanh, Dr. David Hawkins, Michael Singer. All of that is very healing also. So that's everything I wanted to offer about healing today. And I'm so grateful that you tuned in for this very first episode of the School of Transformation podcast. If you haven't already, please do join the waitlist for the School of Transformation, for my new School of Transformation, which is opening up soon. And that's going to include all my courses. I've got tons of new courses coming out. I've got a 4-week formation at-home workout. I've got a total transformation program that's for body, mind, and spirit practices. I also have the classic 30-day lean reset. You're going to get access to that. Plus, you'll get access to weekly coaching sessions from me, group activities, group workshops, we'll have so much in store for you at the School of Total Transformation. So if you have not already joined the waitlist, join the waitlist. If you're watching this sometime past May 2023, the School of Transformation is now open. Come on in. Check the link below. Go to brendaturner.com for more information. Okay, you guys, thank you so much for hanging out with me this far. If you made it this far, you're the best. You're the best. And I'll see you in the next episode. I'll see you in the next video. I'll see you soon. Have a great day. Bye, guys.